The state's high court has made its decision in the battle over control of Holiday World and Splash and Safari. We'll tell you what they decided. Plus, Huntingburg Mayor Denny Spinner is tonight's guest on Monday with the Mayor, and Jenny Foose with the DuBois County Community Corrections Center is tonight's guest on Inform. All of that and much more is up next here on the 18 WJTS News. Hello, I'm Bradford Raths. More on the fight over Holiday World in a moment, but we begin tonight with a court date being set for a Pike County man accused of killing his estranged girlfriend. During a hearing held last week, Warwick County Superior Court Judge Keith Meyer announced that the trial for 32-year-old Christopher Morton would start on August 4th. Jury selection for the trial will be held starting on July 29th. Meyer was appointed as special judge on this case because Pike County Circuit Court Judge Jeff Biesterveld recused himself from this case. Morton was arrested back on October 30th of last year after he shot and killed 24-year-old Kelsey McDonald in the living room of her home in the 100 block of South Bluff Street in Winslow. Indiana State Police found McDonald unconscious when they arrived, and Morton was found in the kitchen with a gun in one hand and a beer can in the other. McDonald was later pronounced dead after being taken to Jasper's Memorial Hospital. Morton initially refused to drop his weapon when police asked him to do so. Police then tasered Morton before taking him into custody. Morton and McDonald's 3-year-old daughter, who was at the residence when the shooting occurred, was not hurt and was taken by police to be cared for by other family members. Morton was initially charged with a Class A felony for murder and battery in front of a minor. During the trial last week, a motion to add a Class D felony for neglect of a dependent to the charges made by Pike County Prosecutor Darren McDonald was granted by Meyer. Morton's attorney entered a not guilty plea on that charge. Police have now released more information surrounding the events that led up to the shooting of a Washington teen back in December. According to documents recently released by police, 19-year-old Lucas Benjamin stated that he, along with 18-year-old Logan Evans, borrowed a gold Dodge Intrepid at about 2 a.m. on the morning of December 6th in order to sell methamphetamine to 17-year-old Devin Burris. The value of that meth, $100. Benjamin later stated that once they arrived at the parking lot of the Ebenezer Baptist Church along Oak Grove Road in Washington and started the sale, Burris and an unidentified man with him grabbed Benjamin by a hood and tried to pull him from the vehicle. Documents further state that the unnamed man pulled out a gun and started beating Benjamin with it. Benjamin told police that while all of this was happening, a gunshot went off and people began to scream. Evans had shot Burris at that point, and Benjamin said Evans had never intended to shoot anyone, but he did intend to scare the two men. 18-year-old Heaven Berry, a cousin of Evans according to the documents, later took Evans to the Washington police station where they turned themselves in. Benjamin is facing a Class A felony for conspiracy to commit murder, while Evans is preliminarily charged with murder. Berry is facing a Class C felony for assisting someone who committed a murder. Now turning back to our lead news item, the fight over control of a Spencer County theme park has reached its end. This morning, the Indiana Supreme Court declined to hear the legal dispute surrounding control of Holiday World and Splash and Safari. The court battle pitted company Vice President Lori Cook against her brother-in-law Dan Cook. This case was one of almost a dozen that were turned away by the Indiana Supreme Court today. The decision by the state's high court means that Lori Cook will continue to be the majority shareholder of Holiday World with 60% of the shares, while Dan Cook will own 40%. The original lawsuit in this case was filed back in late 2012 after a dispute arose over the sale of shares following the death of late park president Will Cook. Vanderburgh Circuit Court Judge Carl Helt originally ruled that Lori Cook was not obligated to sell the shares that her late husband owned to Dan Cook. Dan Cook appealed Helt's ruling, arguing that a purchase agreement was in place, requiring Lori to sell the shares after Will Cook's passing. Back in October of this past year, the Indiana Court of Appeals upheld Helt's ruling in a unanimous decision, and Dan Cook then appealed to the Indiana Supreme Court. Originally, Dan Cook had tried to buy his brother's shares in the park, but the appeals court ruled that his offer of $26.8 million violated the terms of a 2002 agreement between the Cook brothers and their sister Natalie. That agreement governed the sale of shares in the event of any of their deaths. Now, Natalie Cook sold her shares to her brothers back in 2009, leaving Will as the majority shareholder with 60% and Dan Cook 40%. Nearly 3 months after Daviess County was hit by a tornado, federal aid has arrived. The U.S. Small Business Administration opened a temporary office in Washington's West End Fire Station to assist people with getting loans from the administration for damage repair. The location marks the third stop for representatives of the SBA. They had previously stopped in Kokomo and Hillsborough. Now, back on November 17th, the county was hit by an EF2 tornado that was part of a statewide tornado outbreak. It originated in the Maysville area and hit the west side of the city of Washington before heading right down Sycamore Street. More than 110 homes and businesses were reported as damaged from the tornado, and 33 of that number were completely destroyed. The tornado was one of more than 20 that hit Indiana that day in what is now the second largest one-day tornado outbreak in state history. The opening of this office happened in the wake of FEMA's rejection of an application for tornado aid from the state, along with an appeal that was filed later. Once the rejection took place, the state turned to the SBA to get aid for tornado victims. The SBA is offering low-interest loans to homeowners, renters, and businesses that were impacted by the tornadoes. Home loans will be at a 2.25% interest rate, while business loans will be at 4% interest, and not-for-profits will get a loan at just over 2.6% interest. The loans will be available for an up to 30-year time frame. SBA representatives were at the West End Fire Station in Washington between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. today, and they were also there during the same time frame back on Saturday. If you weren't able to make it to the temporary office, you can still apply online for relief through April 7th. You can do so by going to sba.gov, or you can contact the SBA by email at disastercustomerservice@sba.gov. A street project for the town of Holland has taken another step forward. Town officials signed an agreement with Midwestern engineers for the relocation of water and sanitary sewer lines that currently run along Kentucky Street during a special meeting that was held on Friday. The town is planning to do some construction work along Kentucky Street to get heavy truck traffic off of the main roads in town, according to Town Board President Tom Thacker. Thacker says the upgrades to Kentucky Street are important for the town in the long run.
As they come into town, they'll be using that bypass road and staying off of the other roads, and in turn, give them a longer life for the other roads in town. So, in the long run, it's going to save the town some money down the road of not having to constantly repair the other roads in town.
Thacker says the town and the county are set to fund 20% of the work on this project. The other 80% will be funded courtesy of grant money. In final notes this evening, officials with the St. Meinrad Water Utility have announced that a boil order issued late last week has now been lifted. Once again, officials with the St. Meinrad Water Utility have announced that a boil order advisory that was issued late last week for residents of St. Meinrad has now been lifted. All right, coming up after the break, Huntingburg Mayor Denny Spinner joins me for Monday with the Mayor, plus your local forecast, sports with Kurt Gooksell, and Inform featuring Jenny Foose with the Du Bois County Community Corrections Center. That's all up next here on the 18 WJTS News. Local people watching local people.